everyone, and welcome back to Growing Kentucky's Leaders. I'm one of your hosts, Sheldon McKinney.
And I'm your other host, Ruth Ann Fink.
Today we have David Grigson. He is with First Southern National Bank. He's the community president for the Lincoln and Garrett County markets. David was a member of the Lincoln County FFA chapter. He's a father. His dad was an extension agent and a pillar in that Stanford community. And so, David, we all want to learn more about you. So how about you just introduce yourself and your role with First Southern to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you all for having me first. It's an honor to be on here and to get to speak with you all and your viewers. So I appreciate it. A little about me, as you mentioned, David Grigson. I was born and raised in Stanford, Kentucky. Yes, my dad was an ag agent here I would get the years wrong, but I know it was longer than 30 years. So we'll say 30 plus years as an ag agent here in Lincoln County. He and my mom moved here in, I think it was 84, 85, and I was born in 86. So my whole childhood was being around dad and his ag agent background. And so went to high school at Lincoln County High School, graduated there in 05. And yes, I was, as you've already mentioned, as part of the FFA program when I was in high school here in Lincoln County. Graduated in 05 and went to Campbellsville University for college, and was lucky enough to get a golf scholarship there, and so I got to play collegiate golf and got an awesome education at Campbellsville. Really enjoyed my time there. Went to college to be a banker. I knew I wanted to be a banker even in high school, and so stepping into college, I knew I wanted to go into finance and go down that road. Unfortunately, I graduated college with business administration and finance in 2009, and that was a horrible time to graduate and try to go into a banking career. And for those that don't know, that was a time of a major recession that our country was dealing with, and most of it was housing. So there was no banks hiring, and I knew I wanted to work at First Southern National Bank. In high school, I did a little school program that First Southern offered, and then in college, I interned some with First Southern, and so I knew that's where I wanted to be, but bad timing. So Dad helped me get a job out of college through some of his connections, and knew a large Angus farmer here in Lincoln County that owned another business in the fishing tackle wholesale business. His name is James Coffey, if y'all know who I'm talking about.
We do know him, yeah.
James is awesome. James was my first boss coming right out of college, and James invested a lot of time and energy into me, and just super thankful for my experience there. It's kind of fun to look back on because I had no interest in being a salesman. But what I learned while I was at Pittman Creek for 2 or 3 years was how to sell a product, and it's been super beneficial to me now as a banker. Banking is not really selling, but a lot of times you learn a lot through the sales style, I guess you will, of how to sell yourself or how to put yourself in the right spots to talk to the right people and that kind of thing. So worked at Pittman Creek for I think it was 3 years, and did sales and was sales manager. Ended there as the national sales manager for James, and it was a really fun job. But like I said, I wanted to be in banking, and I think James knew that from day one. So finally, in 2012, a guy named Doug Ditto, who still works for us here, called me and said he needed some help, and I said I'm interested. And so came over and worked with Doug for a couple years in what we call our holding company, our headquarters in downtown Stanford. Then I moved into our operations department for about a year, which I would say our operations department is basically kind of like the backside of the bank, a lot of balancing, a lot of reports, a lot of Excel, a lot of it spreadsheets, just a lot of behind the scenes type work that actually makes the bank work. And it was a phenomenal foundation for me to kind of really learn the ins and outs of the bank. And so that was a great experience. About a year after that, I moved to our branch out into here in Stanford and became a loan officer. I think that was 2015. And actually, it was another cool story. I got to work with Tommy Davis, who was a longtime employee, loan officer here for us. He was a farmer himself. Had I know he won the Kentucky Cattlemen's Association, they do those, um,
Like Farmer of the
yeah,
Year.
Farmer of the Year, Hall of Fame. A few years ago, he got inducted to that. But Tommy was a phenomenal lender, and I got to learn from him, and he was kind of like a second dad to me growing up. His son was my best friend growing up, and so it was kind of neat to kind of fall into learning from him. And he was close to retirement, and when he retired, he basically handed me his portfolio, and so that was a huge blessing for me. And then few years later, became community president of Lincoln County, and I've been doing that for probably at least 5 years. I lose track of the years because I'm having a lot of fun. But and then in the last couple of years, I've also been community president of Garrett County, which Lincoln and Garrett counties touch. I have office there and an office here in Stanford, 10-minute drive. So it's not too bad, but I've really enjoyed being able to serve two markets and getting to learn more and more people in the Garrett County market.
Yeah.
That's the banking side. I can go into
We have lots of things we want to talk to you about. I think hearing your background is so valuable for our listeners to know, for us to know about you. We talk all the time on this podcast of it's a small world, but it gets even smaller when you work in agriculture or you had FFA experiences in the past. So we know James really well, and his wife Lou Ann is on our board.
Okay.
So
Okay,
it's very small circles when you're involved in ag and FFA.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we'd love to hear more from you about the relationship between Kentucky FFA and First Southern National Bank. So I just want our listeners to know that First Southern National Bank has been a major supporter for 3 years to the Kentucky FFA Foundation. You all have been giving $25,000 a year for 3 years now, which is a huge gift. And specifically what those dollars are going to is what in the FFA world, we call them SAEs, but that's supervised agricultural experiences. So what you all are gifting is $500 grants to students and FFA members that are in your all's footprint to have a launch grant to really launch these SAE projects and encourage some entrepreneurs in your area in lots of different ways. And they have been huge gifts to these students. I mean, if you're a 15-year-old and you're starting this business and you get a $500 grant, that means the world to you. And it really can launch things, for lack of better words, for that project. And I hope you all have been getting lots of great thank you letters over the years and hearing about some of those projects and the students that they impact. But I wanted to specifically ask, what inspired the bank and this culture of philanthropy that you all have? And specifically with Kentucky FFA, why is that a choice to invest in those members?
Yeah, so when you ask that question, the first thing that pops in my mind is it just seems like a lot of our values and the way of life really could line up with the same as FFA. It's hard work and leadership, giving back to each other, helping each other, and making our communities better, in which we live and serve. I think that's where it originated from, was just we all know so many people that have been through FFA in our communities, and you look around and most of them are leaders in some form or fashion. And so that just kind of makes sense for a bank who tries to live out those same kind of leadership, responsibilities, to partner up and continue that for years to come.
One thing I want to talk about is in my interactions with First Southern National Bank, I've just been so impressed by so many different things. Most banks, you all kind of do the same thing. You do banking, but you all do it a little bit differently and a lot differently, in that you all have such a hospitable environment, and you all really believe in teaching good financial practices and stewardship and coaching people. And you all offer some resources to people that you're lending to and banking with to help them be more financially savvy and stable than I think a lot of other places do. So why don't you tell us, why is that important to your bank, and what kind of resources do you typically share?
Right. Yeah, it's honestly, it's one of the favorite things about the bank here, that I get to work for and be a part of. I mean, I tell so many of my customers, my friends, and just all the relationships that I have, like, we are different. And the major reason we're different is we don't like people to have debt. We just don't think it's good. We don't think it's healthy. Now there's debt that you have to have, right? I mean, we want people to own their homes, and we want people to have vehicles and make investments and that kind of thing. But the quicker you can pay that stuff off, the better you're going to be, and the more stable your family's going to be. You mentioned a lot of the programs that we offer. I mean, yes, we do. We offer debt coaching. We have Compass Financial Studies, which is basically a program where you walk through what God says about money. And we love to share that with our customers that are interested. Organizations, we're starting to take that out to different organizations and share that with them, and just try to help people make wise financial decisions. And we just think that's going to make their lives better.
Yeah. I don't think it's very often you hear a bank say, yeah, we don't really like our people to have debt.
I know.
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
different. It's different.
yeah. So what about those goals you all have, that you have these values and principles that you all try to share with your customers? What advice do you have for our students who are maybe embarking on an agricultural enterprise, or they've got their first job, they're thinking about their futures? What are some of those philanthropic or financial principles that you all do share?
Right. So what I would say first and foremost, it's obvious that the majority of society does not keep a budget. Most of our society, especially in this day and age, is spending more than they're making, and that's a problem long term. What I would tell the students now is it's never too early to start saving some money. Because there are always so many entrepreneurs that come out of the FFA program. The first thing that bankers ask somebody that's want to start a new business or start something new on their farm is, well, how much cash do you have to put into it? What's your investment? So it's never too early to start saving money. And a simple way is just to do the budget of, here's how much money I make each month, and here's the 5 to 10 things I know I have to pay for, and then would encourage tithing, and then I would encourage saving. And I promise nobody ever regrets having a lump of a savings account whenever they're ready to embark on a new program.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. We hope that our students in FFA, whether it's through their interactions with their ag teacher in their class, the records they have to keep for these projects, these SAE projects, I mean, we hope that their experience in FFA kind of sets them up for success more than your typical student. But any tools we can offer to students too, or you know how it goes. It's always better. You can't have more than enough tools when it comes to these things. I did want to talk with you about your FFA experience. You were an FFA member at Lincoln County. Now you're this leader at First Southern National Bank. How has your experience in FFA really shaped your approach to leadership and professional development? And how do you continue to apply that today?
Yeah, I think the two things that quickly come to mind are, I think the program does a great job of instilling hard work and discipline. That would be kind of the key thing that I think I took away from it, was just the projects that we worked on, and working in the greenhouse every day, just having that discipline to watch something, from the beginning to the end, and stay with it and make sure it thrives. And then the second thing, for me personally, I think the public speaking portion of it was vital to me. I have to speak all the time in front of not crowds, but I have to speak to different groups of people very often. I spoke to 30 or 40 people yesterday, and so I would say the public speaking aspect of it has been very beneficial to me.
Yeah. What contests what were you involved in when you were in FFA?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me that. I do remember doing, I'll get the titles wrong, but I do
It's
remember
fine. Yeah,
doing
they
a lot
probably
of
change anyways.
a lot of the just public speaking, picking a topic, researching it, and speaking on it.
And promptly speaking.
Yes, there it is. Yes, thank you.
You had your 20 minutes. Yes.
And that helped in college too. I mean, there was times where I had to do projects in college, and to already have that background, it sure did make it a lot easier. And then another thing I think that's been very beneficial to me is just learning the parliamentary procedures from an early age. I serve actually as board chair of the Ephraim McDowell Regional Hospital now, and going through those meetings once a month and having that background has just been so beneficial to me.
Yes, it helps your confidence a whole lot more when you're in those
For
situations,
sure.
for sure. And I don't know if you know this, but Lincoln County just competed at the national level with their
Oh,
parliamentary
yeah.
procedure team. So it is a legacy that is
Yeah.
still living on there in
Good.
Stanford.
Well,
Yeah.
that's great to hear.
Yeah.
They won the state. It's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
while we're on the topic, let me ask you a question about Lincoln County specifically. You're the market president there. Lincoln County is a rural community in Kentucky, and so is Garrett County. But I have to tell you that you all kind of have this incredible pocket of philanthropists who come from your area. Our board chairman, Nick Carter, established a Forever Blue endowment for Lincoln County. The Coffees, James Coffee that you just mentioned, he's giving to that endowment. It's been incredible to see that grow and thrive. And so a question that I kind of feel passionate about is, why is it important that we continue to pour back into our local little small town rural communities?
Yeah. I think of it as a way to repay the favor, right? I mean, I had so many people around me growing up in this community that would, made a huge impact on my life, and I'm sure that those people that you just mentioned could say the exact same thing. And so, I think one of the cool things about a rural area is everybody's closer and everybody kind of knows everybody, which leads to deepening relationships. And I think those relationships, are built upon year after year. And then, the younger generation comes in and those relationships still stand. It could be grandkids of somebody that you have a relationship with, or a cousin or close friend. But I think it's what it goes back to is a great opportunity to have awesome relationships in a rural area and repay the favor that the people in front of you did for you.
Well, it's been incredible to really get to see that happen. And I have gotten to have lunch many times with some Lincoln County folks. And it seems like all roads trace back to Houstonville, specifically Houstonville Baptist
Yeah.
Church. I have to
Yeah.
tell you, they're all like, yeah, we all went to church there. So
Yeah.
that's kind of small town connections. But
Yeah.
another question for our students that they may think, what if they're watching this, they're going, I think I would really like a career in the banking industry or in finance. If you are hiring young people, either out of high school for jobs at the bank or recent college graduates wanting to work in finance, what are you looking for and kind of what experiences do you hope that they've had?
Confidence, definitely. Easy to talk to. Um, Being polite, looking people in the eye when you talk. Um, I personally look for, um, that you can quickly pick out that they have a desire to want to work hard. Um, Unfortunately, I don't always see that. We like to say around here at the bank that, we like to hire people that have fire in the belly. Just that you can just tell, like they're determined, they're self-disciplined, they want to work hard, they want to make a difference. That's what we're really looking for in hiring good people.
Yeah, sometimes those things are taught outside the classroom in organizations like
Exactly.
FFA or other experiences that they may have. So I think that's great for them to hear. It's definitely reassuring.
Mhm.
We love to wrap up our podcast with asking our guests the same 3 questions. It's a great way for us to share leadership advice with students and just get to pick the brains of the leaders that we get to interview here on the podcast. So the first, maybe the hardest, I don't know, is what's the best piece of leadership advice that you've ever received?
So I love one-liners, and so that's
Mhm.
usually always what I pick up on. And so I've been asked that question multiple times, and I always come back to this one. Um, and you can say it two different ways, but you're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. Or if you flip that to a situation that you're dealing with, it's never as good as you think it is, or it's never as bad as you think it is.
Mm.
And for me, I think that's just humbling.
Yeah.
I think we can tend to worry about stuff because we think it's going to be so awful. But really, whenever you get through whatever you were worried about, you look back and it's like, well, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Or on the personal side, I think it's just a very humbling one-liner of, you know, when people get into leadership roles, you can think, man, I really got it going on. You know, our team's doing great, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And well, truth be told, no, they are, because it's a team. And so I think it's a great way to just stay grounded.
Yeah,
Really good.
that's good. Thank you. So, we're a philanthropy. Kentucky FFA Foundation is all about giving back. And we want to give you the opportunity to shout out and give back to somebody who's poured into you. So, who is one person that has just been pivotal in your journey of leadership that you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, it's got to be my dad. He's just been so supportive of everything I've done, and it's funny now that I'm a grown adult and in a career, and looking back on childhood and remember the things that my dad was doing at the time. And, I thought, man, he's working, every day. And then he's going to all these meetings, which were, cattlemen's and,
all the meetings.
at all the meetings at his office.
Yeah.
I mean, just 4-H and everything.
Yeah.
And now I look at me today and I'm like, that's kind of me, and so just kind of falling in his shoes. And I know why Dad did all those things was because he cared and he wanted to make this community better. And that's what I want to do now in my career. It's two totally different industries, with him being in the ag and me being in finance. Luckily, I get to do some ag lending, which I love with that background. But Dad just I can just always remember him doing public speaking and always been well versed and researched and well prepared. And so I try to always do the same things that he taught me from a young age.
That's special.
Yeah, that's really great. Our last question we always ask is sometimes the fun one, is just what's something you're loving right now that's helping you grow as a leader? Our leaders are always learning themselves and growing themselves, and this can really be anything. It could be a habit that you're loving, a piece of technology, a book. I mean, when we interviewed my mother, she said yoga. So, I mean, it really, the options are endless here, but what's something you're loving that's helping you grow?
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about margin here at First Southern in the last, I don't know, 3 months, it seems like. And by that, what we're talking about is just in our personal lives and in our scheduling and just trying to create margin. Everybody's just always in a hurry. Anytime you go, you run across somebody that you're friends with or walk across on the sidewalk, hey, how you doing? 99% of the time, the answer is good, just really busy. And so it's been great for me to hear the conversations and leaders that are pouring into me to just kind of ask the question of, hey, do you have enough margin in your life? Do you have enough, are you creating enough time in your schedule to spend with your wife? Or are you creating enough time in your schedule to love on your kids and do things as a family? Are you creating enough margin in your life to spend enough time in the Word and at church? And are you creating enough margin in your schedule at work where you're truly serving your customer in a way where you're truly helping them make a wise financial decision instead of just making a loan transaction or a deposit or a withdrawal? And so that's a long way to say the book that we're reading right now it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and it's by I'm gonna get it wrong, John Comer, and it's been really, really good for me. I'm reading it every night when I kind of lay down and start to slow down, and I think it just ends the day really well for me, and sets the table for the next day. So I highly encourage that book. And another one I read this year is Atomic Habits, and my biggest takeaway from that book was just every day try to be 1% better. And so if you wake up in the morning and feet hit the ground, if that's kind of your mentality, is I'm going to be 1% better than I was yesterday, you're always going to be moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's great. That is a wonderful book. I hope whoever's listening puts that on their reading list.
Yeah.
They rarely do like one-liners stand out to me in books. And that one, I remember, I think it's in the first chapter. It's been a while since I read it, but it says we're always our worst selves when we're in a hurry. And that
Right.
is so true if you think
Mhm.
back to that, and it's powerful. So I'm so glad you shared that, and thanks for
Yeah,
creating some margin for us today for this
absolutely.
podcast. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been
Awesome.
great, and it's been a fun experience.
Okay. David, thank you for joining us. We are so appreciative of First Southern National Bank's gift to us every year, and
Yeah.
we are proud of that partnership and the difference that it's making in communities across Kentucky. And we just thank you for being here, and thank you for our listeners. We'll see you next week on Growing Kentucky's Leaders. Growing Kentucky's Leaders is a podcast brought to you by the Kentucky FFA Foundation. Our music is performed by Bourbon County FFA member Joe Fritch. Artwork is by Julie Fritch Creative. Your hosts are Sheldon McKinney and Ruth Ann Fink, and you can find us on all social platforms at Kentucky FFA.